So like I told you earlier when I was introducing part one about sort of my career path and how I sort of went from role to role because I wanted to learn. So no surprise, after a year or something of being in Harrods, you know, I would basically watch these sales managers come in from the different brands to come and train us in our department. And they would talk to us about seasonality, which is when I was first introduced to that concept. You know, what is a season, new collection. So these sales managers come in and they show us their new products and talk to us about brand history and, you know, train us about what they were selling and the brands that they represented. And I loved what they were doing. I thought, my gosh, their life is so glamorous and they're going around different places, meeting different people, selling their products. And then I'd also watch sort of our buyer on the shop floor, you know, when she'd come out, she'd look at the collections. And then I was like, oh my God, buying, you know, how glamorous that is as well. You get to travel, you get to, you know, source all these new products. So I sort of was, you know, in between. Well, I knew that I didn't have, obviously, any of the knowledge or skill sets to even consider going into a buying role or an assistant buying role. But I knew I was a fantastic salesperson. And then so for me, the natural step up was going to want to become, you know, sort of a sales manager or be like the sales managers that would come to us at Harrods. So like I said, within sort of a year or so, I quit my job at Harrods and I wanted to really go out and find this sales manager job that I was obsessing about at the time. So there was a brand that I loved and still love today called Designers Guild. And, you know, it was owned by a remarkable woman, Trisha Guild, and she was one of the first empowered women actually to create her own business in home furnishings and interiors and textiles, and her colors and her tastes. And, you know, I'd read about her office environment and how it was all open space and artistic and creative. And I wanted to be like Trisha Guild, you know. For me, she was my inspiration at work, and I wanted to have a business like hers and, you know, be involved in this really beautiful, you know, production of materials and colors, and obviously work within the industry that I had graduated from. And so, you know, I tried to apply for vacancies at Designers Guild, and bizarrely, you know, I went in, I got my interview, I aced it. I did these mood boards for them. They loved me. I met the sales manager, then I met her manager and all of these people, and then I never got the role. And I'll never understand today why I never got it. I mean, I went through the whole process and every single one of them was like, you're amazing, amazing, amazing. And I never heard from them. But anyway, I mean, that was one of the many setbacks that I've had where bizarrely I go for interviews and I think I've nailed it, I've done a great job, and I never hear from the recruiter or the brand or the business again. And I always think, I guess it wasn't meant to be. So basically one day, out of frustration because I was not finding a job and I thought, you know, I can sort of step into a job really easily. At the time, of course, there's no Google, so there's not, you know, all of these portals that you can go and sort of look for jobs. And so I was flicking through the magazines, and I actually had a magazine in Vogue, and in the back pages of Vogue at the time, because people did advertise, believe it or not, in print vacancies. There's a little tiny sort of vacancy, and it has sales manager for a furnishings brand. So I called the number, and basically, long story short, I went and I met, and basically it was, you know, this sort of new startup business that had a niche, beautiful product and furnishings. And they were looking for someone who was a sales manager to come and work with the owner, a very small company, like 2 or 3 people in it. And so I went for the job interview, and I got the role. You know, obviously I did have great experience, and they, you know, they believed in me. And again, this was Empowered Woman number 2, Empowered Women. And I learned a lot from this job. Well, first and foremost, it was miles outside my house and hours of driving. But so that was grueling just to get there and get back. But the things that I learned from this individual were amazing, because first of all, it opened my eyes to what an entrepreneur really is. And what does it mean to have your own business, and the challenges, and creating a brand and creating a USP. And I would go every single day because she taught me personally how to sell her product. And we would pack these suitcases that weighed tons, and we'd drive around London and pretend to look glamorous, and she was very glamorous. And we'd go into these, you know, meeting after meeting after meeting every single day. And we'd be like opening these rolls of fabric. And each time she would sell the pitch like it was fresh and be passionate, obviously, about her product and about the textures and how she made it and where in the world, you know, and it was organic and the colors. And she'd sit there and I'd be listening to her, learning how an entrepreneur, a business owner, comes with a different kind of passion. And, you know, she was like teaching me these selling skills. And of course, you know, I was learning more about, because we would meet architects and hotel groups and, you know, different wholesale accounts. And I was learning about, you know, how do you set up a business and how do you manage it financially? And then, you know, this grueling thing of having to actually do it every single day. And so that, though exhaustive, was an incredible learning from her, you know. And like I said, it sort of opened my mind to this entrepreneurism. And so I spent, again, just over a year with her or so, and then, you know, decided I wanted to do this. I mean, I felt after 2 and something years, you know, of being sales and having this passion and understanding, you know, the shop floor and customers, and then understanding now, you know, about entrepreneurship and business and, you know, having your own. And I was really inspired, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to try. So I left that business, and then I set up my own business in interior design and took all the learnings that I had. And I remembered when I was in Harrods, there was this brand that I absolutely loved called Passementeria Toscana. And it was this Italian brand based in Florence. But of course, back then, remember again, there wasn't any Google. And there was just like yellow pages, and you couldn't ever find things easily. And I was obsessed with this beautiful brand, which, you know, did these gorgeous throws and cushions, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And I wanted to represent them, and I wanted to reach them. And all I had was a name, and all I had was Italy. So through a number of different ways, basically I managed to track them down. And I picked up the phone and got on the phone. I'm like, oh my God, I love your brand. I've been looking for you forever. You know, I used to work in Harrods. I've got this experience. I'd love to represent you in the UK. And there's this brand at the other end going, who is this? And we're not quite sure we understand what you want. And I was like, I love it. I think you don't just have to be in Harrods. You know, you can be all over the UK. You can work with interior designers because of everything I'd learned in my last role. You can work with architects. You can do like proper commissions, not just selling to retail. So basically, with very little money, I got on a plane, speaking obviously no Italian, and I convinced them to meet me, and got on a plane and went there to Florence and met the international sales manager, was empowered woman number 3, and she was fantastic. And she looked at me and she saw like my passion. First of all, I love the product, and that's something that, you know, throughout my career, I've never taken a job that I never believed in or loved, or a brand or any role, because without loving it, I knew that I couldn't be successful in it. And she could see in my eyes, I mean, I loved this brand. I loved it from when I was selling it at Harrods, and I loved it when I was standing in front of her. So she toured, you know, her offices with me, and she took me to the factory, and she taught me about, you know, how they'd spend 3 hours, 4 hours weaving just like a few inches of these beautiful, you know, brocades and these gorgeous tapestries. And then I was just falling in love more and more, and practically begging her to represent them. And then she introduced me to the owners of the business and took me out to the stores and showed me their beautiful like artisanal work. And oh my gosh, I wanted it more than ever. And after my sort of few days with them and meeting the family out there, they agreed, you know, yes, okay, we'll let you represent. And that's a big deal, guys, because I was, you know, quite young, and this brand entrusted in me because of my passion. And obviously I did have the knowledge of selling, and I did, you know how to go about it. So I started my own business, and, you know, invested a lot of time working with this brand, representing them. And it was tough, you know. I mean, I would go out from the crack of dawn really and work all the way through to the evenings, just driving around, lugging around these huge books and all of these furnishings and rolls and trying to look like remotely decent and not breaking a sweat and then I built up, a base of around 150 clients, which was really impressive. Like I said, different wholesale accounts, different retailers, and all of this sort of really gave me a huge amount of confidence. And I thought, well, if I can do this for this one brand, perhaps I can add to my portfolio and start to sort of look at different brands to represent them from Italy. So then, I started sourcing, new brands and approaching new brands and convincing them to sort of work with me, because I did have a track record, and that was really important, because I'd had my success with Passoneria Toscana, that I knew that now I had that, I could evidence it to other companies and then show them my success and then win them as, my accounts. And so, I grew to a sizable business, and it was a lot of hard work. I turned my home into my showroom. My kids were living in this dust and this frenzy of materials. And, I put so much effort into it. And then, of course, realized that as an entrepreneur and as a business person, one, you're limited financially, because even if you do grow without sort of the financial means to really set you up, or if you grow too quick, that was, not going to be useful, because I wasn't able to sort of manage it. And then the other thing, of course, was the stress of an inconsistent income, right? Because, when you're an entrepreneur, your own business, and you're self-starting, you don't have an income every single month, and you have responsibilities, and you have a household. And so that started to become a stress, because I was putting out so much more than I was getting. And that's natural, because in the first 1 and 2 and 3 years, you end up giving a lot and putting out a lot until you see reward, because you're investing to get the reward. And for me, it was just really tough. I couldn't sustain myself. So then I took a decision that I really needed to get a job and kind of reconsider myself. And perhaps I was still really too young and inexperienced to sort of be the entrepreneur that I think I wanted to be, or be this businesswoman. And so I thought, right, best thing to do right now is get back into the game. And I really missed the game as well. I sort of missed that side of it. And, I thought, right, best to now go get a job and add to my experience.